step in flight teaching. Pre-briefing flight. Discussion on a one-to-one basis just prior to the conduct of an air exercise to ensure that the student understands exactly what will take place. This is essentially a practical briefing on the air instruction, avoiding theory but including the important aspect. When we say avoiding theory, it means that the theory you will saw it before, okay? It's what we are doing today. Tomorrow I will not explain the same thing, just remind if needed, but the day of the flight, the theory is normally known by the student, okay? So what are we going to do, how we are going to do, and safety consideration, okay? This is separate from the ground presentation, that's exactly what I'm saying. It should precede all flights, whether or not there is a new exercise to be covered. It is also particularly important when sending in student in solo, because I know that you are solo during your training. So very, very important briefing for the solo. Okay. Points that should be covered include the meteorological and aerodrome condition and NOTAM, the aeroplane to be used, its fuel state, and other relevant information. So OEI and so on, weight and balance, and where the exercise will be conducted. Okay. Takeoff time, direction of flight, and time when the helicopter is due to land back at base. The sequence of exercise to be covered during the flight. A review of relevant airmanship points. Okay. So first, aim of the exercise for the training. What is the objective for you today? Use how I will do it. Picture, schema, picture, okay, on the whiteboard, and explain. Key points to complete the exercise. Faults to avoid. Aim for the training. Okay, today I'm waiting for you this, and this. Okay? The scenario and the objective. The question, sorry. Use the pre-briefing flight to check if your trainee knows the theory of the exercise. If you request, okay, explain to me VTOL 1 takeoff, for example. If he's not able to do it, no need to go in flight. No need. Okay? The in-flight exercise is a culmination of all ground training and preparation. Of course, to achieve maximum effectiveness, it must be flown immediately after the pre-flight briefing. Don't do it 3 days before the flight, of course. Avoid to perform the briefing on Friday if you are going to fly on Monday. So during the weekend, beer, shinga, dancing. The following is a guide to the conduct of a training flight. Variation may be necessary to suit individual student requirements, as Florian said. There should never be any doubt as to who has control on the aircraft. Very, very, very important. All the time, you need, and the student needs to know who has the controls. If you want to help him for an exercise, I don't know, and if you have to touch the controls, when you finish, immediately you have the control. Explain, especially when you are closer one. Okay, because maybe the student will feel that you have the hands on the control, and for him, okay, I don't have. So explain the rules. When I have the control, I say my controls, or I have the control, up to you. It's not a problem. And when you give the control to the student, you say you have the control or your control. Okay, it's very, 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 very important.
Or
okay?
You can have a very obvious sign. I always put my hand like this.
Yes.
To show that I don't have the control anymore. So I don't have to, I'm explaining something, so I just tell him, okay, you have the control. Still, I'm still explaining the exercise, but it's obvious that I'm not anymore active.
So, okay, so when you wish to give control to your student, say clearly you have the control and so on. The student has to answer you, I have the control. Okay? When you want to take control, say I have and then take control, ensuring that your student says you have control when relinquishing control. As pilot in command, you have the final authority. You are always the boss. Always, always, always. He is never the leader in flight, in the helicopter. Okay, you are always the leader. Okay, the most complicated flight is the flight with 2 instructors on board. The most dangerous cockpit of the world.
Yes, and 60% of the accidents start with the sentence, I am going to show you something.
So take care when you are flying together. Okay, who is the leader inside and so on. Okay, so take care of this. Your request to give or take control should not be questioned but acted on as quickly as possible by your student. When the student has control, so take care, because sometimes you have the control, but maybe your student can be scared by the situation and move the cyclic or the collective because he's frightened a little bit. So take care of this. We have in France we have some accident due to this, especially in auto rotation. In short final in auto rotation, just after flare, the student missed the flare, so the instructor said, okay, I have the control. And when he wanted to land, the student was scary and take the cyclic and pull the cyclic like this, and they hit the tail boom on the ground. So take care of this. Okay? When you have the control, you have the control. This is particularly difficult during critical maneuvers such as full off auto rotation, as I explained, full on auto rotation, when there is a little time available to the instructor to correct the errors. It's the same for the confined area, not confined area, slope area, sorry. Because on the slope area it's very tricky, especially left, right landing. Okay? This procedure must be adhered to at all the time, of course. For most new exercise, you should first review the main point of the maneuver and then give a perfect demonstration. The review must be short. Your demonstration should be a complete maneuver and should set the standard you want to student to ultimately achieve. So as I explained, most of demonstration you do it completely, you start and finish. But the slope area, it's a special demonstration because you have to do it step by step to explain. Okay? So explain to your trainee, it's not a demonstration like the other. When you perform a OEI or when you perform an approach or a takeoff, you do it completely. Okay? But on slope area, you do it step by step, first, step down, and so on. Okay? So it's a little bit different. In the case of a complex maneuver, okay, it's exactly what I explained. watch closely for any major error. If you observe a major error, take control immediately. Avoid to let the student go on the exercise if there is a major error, okay? And explain to your student what was done incorrectly. Then demonstrate as soon as possible what to do to correct the error. Maybe you have to do another demonstration. Sometimes I did it with you, especially on OEI, VTOL 1 and VTOL 2. When you have to down and up to reach the hovering altitude, okay, for landing. Allow practice of small portion before proceeding to the next portion. Sometimes you can do or explain only for an approach, for example. Clear report, for example. Maybe you have to demonstrate the time and how you have to down the collective, okay? Or maybe explain how you have to reduce 65 to 40 knots. Maybe it's another, I don't remember, it was with, I explained that first when you start to descend, the first is collective first, and not collective and cyclic in the same time. It was with you beam. Because if you do in the same time, start to descend and reduce the speed at the same time, you are going to stay in level like this. So after you are going to be too steep, on the angle. Okay, so first collective down, I start to descend, and after I reduce my speed to stay on the path all the time. Okay, for example. So maybe you have to just work this part because you trainee didn't understand exactly how to manage. Okay?
So here maybe you can find some differences in the way we teach on the lifting and the way we teach in flight, because you have to keep in mind that we have two different kinds of training, flight training. The initial training, flight instructor, when you have a trainee who has never flown, and typewriting instructor, what we are doing with you. Of course, with you, we are not going to show the entry. We are going to see all exercise because you're already pilot, already qualified, so we can ask you to fly the complete exercise. But this takes place when you have a beginner who never flew, and you really have to split point by point, as we explained. So don't think, oh, but they have not done like this with us. Yes, because we do a little bit differently because it's the typewriting and it's not flight instruction. Okay. But the basics are the same. If you really have a tricky exercise, you can really, even on typewriting, if it's something new, for example, the funnel failure or something like this, which is quite new for you, even if you have already flown a helicopter, then you can make it step by step. Slope learning, which is a specific procedure on the 135 or IMC authorization, maybe you have never flown, then we could do it. But this is an exercise that at your level you can build completely from the beginning to the end. Okay, so this course is for flight instruction and typewriting instruction. So we are speaking about things we don't even practice ourselves with you because we are doing typewriting instruction.
Okay. Last sentence, very important. Then allow continued practice, slowly withdrawing your guidance and assistance. I mean, slowly you have to let the student do, okay, to see if he can do it himself, okay? For example, now when you are starting, when we are in flight, when you are starting the EC135, I say nothing, and you forget nothing. You do exactly, you don't forget the weather radar test, you don't forget to check the H2, the camera, the D-map, and so on. Okay? But when you are going to start with them, you are going to be very with them. Okay? Okay. Take the checklist and step by step. We do that, and after step by step, you are going to shut up and let them do. Okay? So very important, you remember, you have the hats, use it for the startup and shutdown. Very useful. As your student gains proficiency, you may look for minor errors and correct them in the same manner, okay? When major error and weakness are okay, are solved, you can manage the minor error. Remember though, learning to fly well takes time and you should concentrate on the major point first. All the time you will learn every day. Today we are still learning with Florian, be sure of that. Many of the minor errors will be corrected as your student corrects the major faults. Also remember to praise for good performance. If practical, conclude the air exercise with a perfect demonstration of the maneuver to be learned on the next lesson. This will help your students fully understand the home study about the next exercise and also provide a positive mental picture about what will be taking place during the next flight. Of course, you will not give a demonstration of new material if the next lesson was to be a review or a repeat of lesson.
Now this as well, if you will on time, this is, of course, you will not give a demonstration of new material if the next lesson was to be reviewed. So, if you have a lesson and the trainee is you do something, you repeat, it's fine, you do it one more time to make sure it's not by chance, you does it again, okay, so it seems to be okay, then you are a little bit in advance in your lesson. It's not forbidden to give a demonstration of the exercise you will try the next lesson, but you don't ask him to do it because he has not been briefed. It's just to give him a side picture of how it looks like. So during the briefing, he will have something to refer to ask you some questions. Of course, but so when you did it on the demo, you said this and you have done that. Why? So he already benefit of some advanced demo. But in no cases you ask him to do the exercise since you have not briefed him already. Okay? Clear?
So as I explained, when discussing a student's faults, always take control. Okay? You have the control at this time. In some cases, you may ask the student, as I explained to Florian last time, you may ask the student to analyze the errors in a particular sequence. Usually this will happen during later stage of training. It means, I don't know, maybe after 3 or 4 months of training, you come back to the airfield and you request, okay, perform a clear report landing and perform a bullshit clear report landing. And you can say, okay, explain to me, what did you do? What do you think about your approach?
What was the mistake?
What was the mistake? Please. We come back like this every day. So why today it was not good? Okay? Correct major faults first. Yes, we say that, and then as improvement is noted, correct the minor error. Okay. The correct technique can then be reviewed and practiced on the next flight. Sometimes, however, students may not be able to identify or describe a problem clearly enough for a good ground analysis to be made. As I explained, it's your job, it's not his job. Okay? You should then fly the exercise on the next dual flight when you can analyze the performance and correct any faults. To make efficient use of the time available, as I explained, you are always late. You are always running after the time, all the time. Really, when you are instructor, you should plan the flight to avoid delays between exercises. It means that before takeoff, you know exactly that you are going to, okay, first I do that, after I do that, okay? I know here it's not always easy due to the other helicopter, so maybe in the future you will have to have meeting with the other squadron and discuss and so on, and when you have, I don't know, two helicopter 135 in flight, maybe you have to request to Spider not to fly at the same time, to the 225 not to fly at the same time. Maybe you have to organize.
To coordinate with the other
Yes,
squadron,
because it's very complicated. because spider is using, the 2 spiders are using the slope area, the 2 to 5, the 7 to 5 are using the slope area. So maybe you have to coordinate.
And if you will be master of your syllabus. So my advice is to put some buffer, some room on your syllabus to have time to repeat some exercise you have been obliged to cancel because of coordination here on the field. So, as you know, the normal syllabus is 10 hours. I put 13 hours for you in Germany, just to give you more room for just have a little bit more room to repeat exercise, so you don't feel too much time pressure. I've been 8 years in Germany. During 8 years in Germany, we have been fighting with the time. We had 8 hours to do all the exercise, and then it became 9, and then it became 10 hours. And from the beginning, we have been always fighting with the commercial to get a little bit of more hours, couple of hours, or buffer that we can use in case of. And this is something, if you have the power on your syllabus, please manage some additional buffers that you don't feel such a pressure because you're running out of time and you have to request more hours. Means, okay, your training is not good. No, it's not my training is not good. It's just because for some reason we wasted time, so we burned this time instead of doing exercise. We have been holding on the kilo point. So it's not your fault, it's not the training. But then you have to compensate it. So if you have the chance to put some buffer in your syllabus, so then you can use in case of, that's really a great comfort as instructor.
The best for me, I think I said to you last year, the best way for you is to have an airfield in the north with 2 grass runway. Only for the training, the initial training, it should be the best thing for you. Like this, you can do what you want. You can perform exercise, 2 helicopters on 1 runway in the north. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5, if you can find a field, and we discuss with the farmer, and you don't need a runway of 1 kilometer. No need. Just for walking, it should be really best for you. Really.
No power line.
Yeah, no power line, nothing. No ATC, yes.
And
No ATC.
No.
Attends, ils ont déjà un plan. Je crois qu'ils en parlent. Je leur avais dit l'année dernière. Putain, on fait une tombe dans le nord. En plus, c'est tout là dans le nord, il n'y a rien. Pas dans le nord, dans l'ouest. Dans l'ouest. In area 1, it's perfect.
Yeah, I personally noticed that there is for me, we have a safety issue here when we work, because you have no radar, and you have many people working on the radar and crossing on the radar. Last time we were doing some automation, and we have the Camel 32 just crossing behind 1,000 feet. So I really think that you should ask for a meeting on the base, and maybe put the guy from the next base just on the north and the base on the south, to establish a map with spot points where called A, B, C, D, A, or whatever you want. And when you active this, people should know that on the radial, from radial 270 to 280, from 0 to 3000, this is called area Bravo, whatever you want, or 27. This area is occupied. So people just have to put a radial on the beacon, on the ADB, and they know that, okay, this is my limit area, because you have no radar. And it's not acceptable that when you are doing training, you are more focusing outside than inside and looking at the training system. So I really think that he's right. You should have a strip somewhere, but don't just take a strip and go there. You must say, okay, control tower, I go to the area 51. If you want, you will see
Alien area.
Alien area. No, go to, okay, 51 is active from 10 to 12. Okay, that's it. So everybody knows, and you have a map with all the area. Area 21 is active, so you have a corridor to go to area 21, which is following a specific bearing or radial of the beacon, and that's it. And so you can already, between aircraft on the same area, okay, 51 is active, so the guy is leaving 51 back, so he will be on this. So you don't need radar. You have your own picture showing you where are the guys. And from this altitude to this altitude. This is, for me, in terms of safety, something that you should think about, because sooner or later you will be concerned by what the train is doing, what the other guys are doing, what maybe the weather is doing, and so it cannot be that you are always having one eye inside, one eye outside, and one ear on the radio and one ear on the training. So you have to find a way to make it a little bit more relaxed and not stressful. Okay, this is just an idea. We had it in the army. We had this area was active, so you know that there is a guy inside. So you know where the danger is. So you keep on your area, and everybody is safe.
Okay, fuel limitation, area restriction, and weather conditions should be all considered. Yes, of course. Your flight should be planned so that one exercise is logically and directly followed by another with a minimum of time spent losing or gaining altitude or in transiting from one area to another. Okay, try to organize the best as you can your flight mission. Okay, to lose less time as possible. Review with the student each exercise undertaken during the flight. In the case of a dual flight, the debriefing should include strengths and weakness and suggestion to improve performance. An outline of the next training session should be given along with study assignments. In Germany, you fly all the time with another guy behind you.
Yeah.
Yes. And you are going to do the same with the, okay. It was just a question. No problem. No problem.
What we call training above the shoulder. So it's what we call training above the shoulder. Training for it's additional training, because when you are on the back, your resource, you are 100% resource
Yes.
available.
And you see
So
many
you
things.
see everything that your colleague is forgetting. And when you are on the front, I can tell you that you forget 50% and the guy will notice on the back. That's why it's easier to be instructor, because you have 100% resource available to check. You have nothing else to do than to anticipate, to watch, and to see. When you are sitting on the control, you have at least 50% of your resources, which are just to keep the aircraft level, to think about the binding and everything. So this is quite beneficial to be on the back. And just to repeat, to see the start and procedure, you will see that for you, on the back, everything is obvious. On the front, it's not. On the back.
This should follow all flights. Dual and solo points should include the student's own assessment of the flight and performance. Your assessment of the student performance. This should include both the strong and weak points and advice on how to correct any errors, answering any question the student may have, assigning student subject where appropriate. Answering any question the student may have, yes, but you are human guys, I suppose, and you cannot know everything. So sometimes you have a question, I'm sorry, I don't know, I will check and I will give you the answer. The most important is to give the answer, okay? Yes? Flight safety is an important aspect of flight training. Of course.
If you don't mind, I would add as well something. When you ask a question, be sure you know the answer. No, you know, but it's quite important. When you ask something to the training, you
Yes.
should have a clear answer in your mind, because if your training says, I don't know what is it, then you have to explain. It's better that you know.
You have to. Okay, both air crew and ground crew must be aware of the need for correct safety practice. You are in a position to reduce incorrect, unsafe, and illegal practices. To be successful, a flight safety program requires the correct attitude, proper supervision, rigid enforcement, and proper training. Your student learns by example. You must set this example. You will become the example of your student. If tomorrow you buy new sunglasses, Ray-Ban sunglasses like the St. and Squeeze, your trainee is going to buy the same. Really? It's not a joke. It's not a joke.
So you need discipline. Discipline is the key word.
An experienced instructor is an effective supporter of the principle of good airmanship and flight discipline. As you gain experience, learn to recognize unsafe practices and do something to correct the situation. Practice flight safety by being alert to unsafe practices and taking the appropriate action. Following up when you see an unsafe practice by informing the people involved that they have been seen. Okay? All the pilots, all the student pilot, engineer, mechanical, everybody is involved in the safety practices, of course. Promoting the principle of effective flight safety to students and the other crew and ground crew, of course. Flight safety consciousness by all personnel must become the fashion. Unsafe procedure must be watched for, identified, and their elimination effected by firm and consistent action. Is it okay?
Just as si je peux-
Vas-y, please.
Here, I would like to come back on 2 points just to illustrate what has been said. One is because we were discussing with GB about the main mistakes, mais vous voulez peut-être les faire après, les erreurs les plus communes qu'ils font, des trucs comme ça.
Non, vas-y, je t'en prie.
We were discussing about the main mistake that we noticed. I noticed few of them as well, but okay, there is this one I didn't really notice because maybe in IFA we are not so concerned. But he told me that most of you are always flying with a drift, okay? If you have 30 knots of wind, it's normal that you are doing the approach with drift because you are not drift to the air, but drift to the ground. But when there is no air, no wind, technically you shouldn't be riding with the nose to the right, okay? So this is something I've been concerned with many trainees, because when you start flying a brand new type of helicopter, you have a brand new references, so you have different things, and most of the trainees I've been flying with are doing the same mistake. They are flying with the aircraft a little bit nose to the drift to the left, so nose to the right, okay? So if you can tell the guy, okay, right pedal, this is what I've done several times, but there is a better ways to explain why you are like this. So do you have an idea why you are all flying like this? Any idea? Why is it for why? Because on the Bell 412, it's quite big aircraft, so either you are flying like this, so it's not something new, so you were doing the same mistake on the previous one, or it's new, you are not doing like this because some reason. But by changing of aircraft, you are doing it. So have you been flying the 412 like this as well? No, yes, no. So you don't have the feeling because maybe nobody told you, but maybe you have been flying, okay? So there is a very simple reason that I discovered myself because I was doing the same mistake when I've been flying the Peacekeeper. I've been flying Peacekeeper and they are in the civil for paragrouping. So the first time I flew the Pilatus PC6, my instructor was telling me each time you are landing with right nose. Okay, I don't have the feeling. And then he told me the explanation, said, yes, because you are putting the nose, the propeller in front of you. And since you are not sitting on the middle of the aircraft, like a fighter, you are offset on the right or on the left. If you put the nose in front of you, automatically, since your seat is here, you crash the aircraft, okay? So that's why your aircraft is like this. You have your seat here. You have the system here, and here we have the nozzle with the nose with the compass, standby compass. So if you put the nose of the aircraft in front of your head, automatically the aircraft is 5-10 degrees going to the right. Okay, that's why it's quite easy. So what you have to do is to take a reference here, which has this same offset than your seat regarding the central axis of the aircraft. So this is a basic mistake which is made by all the trainees, all the pilots, even me. So I'm not better than you, I've done the same mistake. When you change the environment, you have automatically the wheel to put the nose in front of you, which is good if you are a fighter pilot because you are center, but since you are not flying single seat, we are flying a dual seat. If you fly a Tiger, no problem, it works. But if you fly a 135 or Bell 412 or whatsoever, this is the first reason why you have to think about. So if you want to correct your trainee, think about this. Instead of telling him you are crabbing, no, we don't, you are not, it's crabbing because of something, you have to find the answer. Okay? First thing. The second thing, peut-être que tu vas en parler, c'est l'évaluation. Tu vas en parler ou pas?
L'évaluation de quoi?
Des capacités d'un pilote, des qualités d'un pilote. Le KS1.
Non.
So how to know if your trainee is weak, average, or good? Okay? So could you tell me what are the points we have to think about? ICAO, International Organization for Civil Aviation, has defined 3 main points which have to be evaluated to analyze the competencies of a pilot. I'm not speaking of a driver or a sailor, pilot, but it's more or less the same. We have K, S, and A. These are the 3 points we have to, maybe you heard about it, no? Did you hear about it? Okay. Alors, this one, so it's theory, so it's the knowledge, okay? Okay, this is only theory, what you have done, the ground course, the books for instruments, everything. Is everything you know about the environment you are going to work with. The second one, skill. That skill, are you practicing skill during a flight training? Yes, but not only. That's why it must be made crystal clear to your trainee when you are asking him just to turn the brain off and just feel the exercise, learn the skill. This is the first part of the training, but sometimes it's difficult because we, as instructor, we switch from the skill to the airmanship without telling the trainee that we are not asking him anymore to focus on the skill. Now we want him to focus on the airmanship. And it happens very often. You do OEI. OEI, the first one, the guy is just doing the skill. Okay, nose up, nose down, power, nose stop, and so on. Okay, he works 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And suddenly, you have the runway, you are doing the OEI, and you tell the guy, if I have the failure before the decision point, I reject. You do the exercise, and the guy continues. I told you to reject. And I say, yes, but I felt that the aircraft was able to fly. Ah, no. We are not doing the skill anymore. Now we are speaking about airmanship. So if you expect him to reject and he flies, that's because you have not been clear enough with him. Here we are practicing skill. Means if you have the failure before, I don't ask you to feel the aircraft. I don't ask you to think about the runway remaining. I don't ask you about, I just want you to practice the skill. So turn your brain off, just leave it open for the skill lesson, nothing else. And this as well has been very time an example I had during training. You really have to make crystal clear, otherwise the guy will suddenly start switching from skill to airmanship or from airmanship to skill. So that is something when you will do the training, first part is theory, okay, no problem, it's on the ground, there is no doubt, he's here to learn, no problem. But when you start flying and you first do the skill, it must be made clear with the training. I don't ask you to think, I just ask you to condition before or after decision. Before you do this, after you do that. That's it. Nothing else. Only analysis you have to do is when did I get the failure? That's it. If it's before you do this, before after you do it. But when you do the check right, if the guys start doing only skill, then we have a problem because we want to evaluate his airmanship, his decision-making process. So this is something you have to keep in mind during your training. There is a phase where you will stop asking Sil, but start asking him airmanship based on the knowledge and on the skill. But if you don't tell him that now you expect him to start working with airmanship, you will have problems. So there will be misunderstanding. So this is something you really have to keep in mind when you are training. And it's not easy, I can tell you, because for you it's obvious what you want, what you expect is obvious, but for you, not for him. So please make clear with your training, okay, today we are on this. I don't ask you to think, I just want you to get the skill. Now we have done enough experience on skill. Now I would like to make an analysis, engine fire during takeoff. Okay, you can apply the procedure. I take off, it's after decision, I thought. But now I still have 1,000 meter runway. Why don't we reject and land immediately? We are not going to fly 3 minutes to a pattern. So this is now airmanship. Okay? So this is something you have to keep in mind because your training will not automatically be on the same concept than you are. Clear? And again, when you do typewriting instruction, it's slightly different. You still have skill, but it's much less important part of the training. It's a little bit more airmanship on the new aircraft. Okay?
And to finish on this point, you remember often when we arrive in final, you are a little bit on the right of the runway. You remember that? So now you are going to be sitting on the left and you are going to be on the left. Sure. If you want, we can bet together. Remember, you have to go to the restaurant. You remember? Okay. So what you have to do to stay all the time on the axis? You don't, when you are here, or here, just look your landing point, go back, find a reference on the ground, and fly over this reference. And sure you will be on the axis. But exactly as Florian said, if you are just looking your landing point, sure you will be like this. Sure. So my landing point, my reference point on the ground where I have to, here. And you will correct it all the time. All the time. It works all the time. If you don't do it, you will be on the right when you will be on the right seat, and you will be on the left when you will be on the left seat. Sure.
You have been to Germany. You have rented a car in Germany, I guess, no? You did not? You did not drive a car in Germany?
We did.
You did? So it's the same. You are on the right or on the left of the car. The car is not, okay, so you don't put the middle of the car and you don't put it. So it's exactly the same principle as driving a car. You are a little bit offsetted on the car, but you take a reference offsetted on your front engine compartment, just to make sure that, and then you drive on the right if you are in Germany, you drive on the left if you are in France, in Thailand. So it's just matter of making the intellectual process to update the position. So it's exactly the same on the 135, but you need to be aware of that. Otherwise, instinctively, you will do it without putting this offset. Okay? So this is just matter of discipline. When you really want to fly an aircraft as an instructor, you have to be demonstrative. So you have to fight with every small mistake that we are usually used to accept. No, we cannot accept any drift regarding what you provide based on what you should provide.
It's why all the time I tell you, look outside, look your ground speed. It's exactly the same when you are in your car. You are driving 60 kilometers per hour, you see the light becoming green from red. You don't wait the 2 last meters to stop your car. With the helicopter, it's exactly the same. If you look outside, you will check, oh, I'm too fast. And you reduce your speed. Okay? If you are only looking inside, okay? Nice. Okay, checklist for good instruction. You want to take a picture? Okay, each instructor should tell the students specifically what is required of them during the lesson and at the end of the lesson, the what of the introduction. So it is a resume of what I said with Florian this morning. Okay, when you go inside, okay, today I'm waiting for you, this. It is your objective, your aims, okay? It identifies the main teaching point for the student by using visual support, chalkboard, orientation board, or other visual aids, verbally referring to the visual aids, tell the student the purpose of the lesson and stress the advantage of the new knowledge or skills, the why of the introduction. Okay? Explain why we are going to perform this exercise today. Okay? Tell students where the lesson fits into the overall picture. Relate the lesson to past and or future experience of the student. The where of the introduction. Confirm that students are at the required level before having them learn new material. Present to be material in stages. A stage should normally be 12 minutes duration. Introduce each stage of the lesson and provide a link of bridge between stage. Briefing before flight. Don't do, you see with me, so IFR flight is different because it's a very long preparation and so on. Navigation flight is different because you have a very long preparation. But when you are performing a normal flight, standard flight, with approach, slope, area, don't stay during 1 hour in front of the whiteboard because after 15 minutes your trainee is sleeping. Okay? Obtain student feedback throughout the lesson by asking questions, observing student performance of a skill, looking at student watching for facial expression and student question. Yes, very important. When you are in flight, when I say you are working for your student, it means that you have to look at him in flight. You have to look his eyes. It's very, very important because when you check his eyes, you know exactly where he's looking. And when I say stop to look inside, it's because I'm turning my head and I see your eyes inside the helicopter. I'm not outside. Okay? The cyclic no need because the cyclic is moving just in front of you. But when you are performing approach, for example, if you want to know exactly if your students start at the good time, you have to have your hand on the collective and you feel, okay, it's starting to descend now, it's too late. Or it's too early because you cannot see it. But if you have your hand, you can feel it. And you know, okay, it's too strong, it's too late, it's too early, it's too, and so on. Cyclic, you don't need. When you are close to the ground, your hand on the right leg, and very, very, very ready. Ready, thank you. Ready to, okay? Left hand below the collective and right here, okay? And like this.
Something
And
else?
not like this.
Something else for you, because this attack is powerful, but we are always, it's hot here, sometimes
Yes.
you are heavy, so you are close to the overtop. So I personally always put on my seat and I'm sitting here, all I have my thumb just on the edge of the seat and my hand on the collective. So I know that if I reach this position, I'm close to the overtop. So I don't even need to look inside. I just feel this with the angle of my hand. I know how much power I have, not exactly the top, but I know that I'm low power, high power, and close to the overtop. So when you are doing, I've seen in Germany, but you did not fly in the dropping zone, but the dropping zone close to Manching, we have been working up to 6 aircraft in this dropping zone without control. So you really need some time to look outside to be aware of the position of your colleague. And when you do it during a takeoff, you cannot look outside and inside. So you really need to have this kind of reference, which is telling you continuously where the collective is regarding the maximum torque or the minimum torque is as well valid during the auto-rotation. I feel that, okay, now we must be close to the desynchronization line, so I have to be careful, so I look inside. So these are some reflex. You must always have the hands close to the control. Try not to accept your training to release the cyclic or the collective in hover, okay? Despite we have the force ceremonies, despite we have everything, even if you have the GTCH, you have to be careful because GTCH is not advised below 200 feet. So there are some things it's your duty to protect the aircraft. So being always ready to pull the collective if something goes wrong is the minimum you can do, okay? I had several times close to be mass moment, having mass moment in hover in Russia because the guys were used to fly with Mi-8, so it's a big amplitude on control, much less nervous aircraft. So when the guy lifted off, they were starting doing big motions, so I saw the mass moment going very close each time. So I don't really care about the cyclic. I blocked the cyclic with my knees, but I was pulling the aircraft a little bit out of the ground to make sure that I have some margin for the tail boom and for the rotor. Cyclic is not that important. You can block the cyclic on the position you have, and you just keep some margin. So the most important for me is the cyclic, is the collective, not the cyclic. Of course, cyclic you grab, but the first action is always mainly on the collective. So as instructor, you must always have your hand on the collective, especially when you are close to the ground. But it's a kind of good information when you are looking outside where the collective is, okay, for overspeed and overflight.
Just one hint before going with this. I don't know if you know this hint with PowerPoint. When you need to have the attention of your training, because you are in ground course and to stop looking on the TV, you just push on the B, black. You know that?
Yeah.
Okay. And white, W, like this, nothing is on the TV and everybody is watching you. Like this you can have the attention, okay? Okay, we go on. So, respond to feedback by answering questions, stopping students doing a step or of a skill incorrectly, reviewing material or steps, asking questions, correcting the student if an error has been made, explaining why the student's performance is incorrect using verbal supports, reteaching if necessary, maybe do another demonstration if needed, and praising students for good work. Okay? Don't forget when it's good, say yes, it's good. Appear enthusiastic about the subject being taught. Use speech variation in rate, volume, and pitch. When I'm talking to you, sometimes I'm talking very slowly, and sometimes I want, and so on. My voice is moving all the time. Okay? Depend of the room. If you can move in the room, do it like this. You can check if the one in the end in the bottom of the room is not sleeping, for example. So if you can move into the room, it's better. Okay? Here I cannot move because there's no place. Okay? Avoid to be like this all the time. And before starting the ground course, you take the worst place in the room, and you, for example, this one or this one, and you check if everybody can see the TV. Very important. Okay? Have students answer questions related to the objective for the lesson during the presentation of new material. Use correct questioning techniques. When you want to ask a question, first you ask the question, and after you design one guide. You let some time, everybody is searching the answer, and after you say, okay, Skywalker, please. Okay? Because all the time you have the guy who knows, yes, me, it's always the same, always. So try to answer everybody, to ask to everybody, sorry. Use a variety of training aids, TV, whiteboard, I don't know, the hats, to appeal to as many senses as possible whenever these aids contribute to achieve of the objective of the lesson. Good idea, for example, when you have a ground course very boring, video is very interesting. You can put a video, maybe 2-3 minutes, pictures, something like that. Okay? Provide sufficient meaningful practice of the main points of the lesson so that students confidently achieve the objective. Allow time relative to the importance of the teaching point. Identify and correct errors or mistakes made by the students at the time they occur as soon thereafter as practicable.
Try to illustrate what you are explaining with,
Yes.
with things that happen, with events that happen, not only to you but to someone else. Just to illustrate the reason why we teach this, the reason why we do that, because there is a risk someone has made a mistake and had a problem. So because he, for example, auto rotation, auto speed went down or the speed went down. So, okay, so then you can flare and something. So it happened to this customer. Why do we ask you to go and switch to idle first and check that there is no change of power because you go to off? Because we have already lost a couple of customers who turned off the wrong engine. So there is a clear explanation behind it. So it doesn't need to happen to you, but it needs to benefit the mistake of those who died, must benefit to those who will maybe die if they do the same. So always try to illustrate an example with a lesson with some examples.
Use clearly worded explanation, deliver the lesson in a logical sequence. Have students carry out speed and or ability competition during later stage of practice if suited to the objective. Conduct periodic reviews of critical areas of the lesson. Summarize the main points on each stage. Confirm student learning at the end of each stage. Test students on the main points of the entire lesson towards the end of the lesson. Provide a final summary that links all stages to the objective of the lesson. Remotivate students, yes, very important, by telling how the new knowledge or skill will benefit them. Maintain the motivation.
And as well, sometimes the reason why the training fails is because the condition of the exercise were not the best. For example, I take an example. I went to VDBK, which is very nice for ILS. And then when I came back, I came here and I had to fly an ILS. Except that here the ILS is really tricky. So it's not an ILS I should fly with a trainee. When I fly ILS for the first time, I have to give him an ILS which is easy to start and to descend, to follow, which is good condition and easy to fly. So if this, for some reason, the organization of the flight makes that this trainee has to fly an ILS here, which is quite, I would not say high level, but requires a little bit more of experience, of course he will be in difficulties, and of course he will have a problem to fly. So it's not his fault, it's your fault. It's the fault of the planning, of the sequence, of everything. So I would say, okay, that's it. It was a mistake, so we skip it, we do it again. Next time we try to follow a correct order. You cannot tell the guy, okay, you are not able to fly a complex ILS from the first crash. Okay, it makes sense, but don't let the guy thinking that he has the responsibility of the problem of the inefficiency on the ILS. It's because there is something else. Okay, so this is something you really have to analyze as well. It's part of the why did I face such a problem with this guy? Okay, so if it's his fault, he has to work on it. But if it's my fault or the fault of we didn't think about before, then it's something different. Okay. And one last point is we are always used to say more important than the answer is the question. You cannot get a good answer if you don't raise a good question. So your question has to be precise enough, sharp enough to avoid misunderstanding. So if you don't get the good answer to your question, it's maybe because your question is not correct. Okay? This is something you always have to keep in mind. It's not because the trainee doesn't answer what you expect that he's stupid. It's maybe your question was not designed sufficiently precisely to make it obvious what you're asking for. Okay?
I think you. Sorry.
Ah, nice. Perfect. On commence maintenant ou quoi?
Bon, nous allons présenter le bouquin. Ouais. À quoi ça sert, machin, puis on reviendra dans l'exercice après.
So, just introduction of this book. Okay, and after we will stop and we start again afternoon. Okay. So, what is this? This book is, as you can read, Standard Manual Unix Edition. This book has been done for EC 145, BK 117, D2 and D3. And for the EC 135, T3 and P for Pratt and Whitney engine, avionics. Okay? So on this book, we cannot give it. It's not possible for us to give it to you. So try to do what you can do, but we cannot. We are not allowed. Okay? But this book is very useful to prepare all the exercises and how to teach them during the course in flight.
And to standardize.
And exactly, and to standardize everybody. If you follow this book, you will do exactly all the same. Okay? So, this manual is meant as a tool for, I suppose you cannot read?
Yes.
I was sure.
On peut pas zoomer un peu? Si. Tu fais CTRL plus ou un truc comme ça.
Non mais je pense qu'il faut sortir de là. C'est pour ça que je voulais l'agrandir en fait. Je vais rester comme ça. It's better like this?
Tu peux mettre un petit coup de pouce quand même.
You can read or not?
No. Okay.
You can?
Yes. Crystal more.
You can read?
Crystal.
It's okay, mini boy?
Okay.
Commander? Yeah?
More
Good?
than.
Maybe you need a dog?
Yeah. Okay, we need more zooming. Okay.
Okay. So this manual is meant as a tool for Airbus helicopter flight instructor to ensure efficient and complete and standardized type rating flight training. Okay, it has been authorized by the HD Flight Training Organization and complements the HD type rating programs and flight manual by providing additional practical information. It can and should be used for the pre-flight briefing before commencing the described maneuvers. This manual is strictly for internal use and only and must not be handed over in hard copy or on electronic media to other persons than Airbus helicopter personnel. I'm sorry. But if you have money, maybe we can discuss. Maybe.
Maybe.
If different or additional procedures are requested by the student, permission has to be given by the local chief pilot. The user is assumed to be familiar with the company's flight training environment, term and abbreviation. All flight instructors are requested to continuously review the procedure described below and suggest improvement. For what reason? So, maybe I can reduce now a little bit.
La version de quand ça?
2020, juillet 2020. Ah oui, je pense que c'est la dernière que j'ai eue.
2020, je ne sais pas l'avoir, je ne sais pas si je vais avoir l'ancienne.
So, the program, what we are going to see. Okay, general rules. You can read it or not? It's okay, Bud?
Yes.
Okay. So any flight training must ensure max safety, of course, max learning benefit and skill progress, compliance with all limitations according to flight manual, of course. Minimum wear and tear for the aircraft, minimum number of POB. It is entirely the flight instructor responsibility to ensure that the following conditions are met. Suitable training environment, traffic, weather, atmospheric condition, airspace, ATC regulation, landing surface. Suitable training helicopter, configuration, technical status, documentation, and so on. Of course. Practical hints. Abbreviated checklist may be used, however, the instructor must ensure that all checks according to flight manual are carried out.
It's better if they move and send to mouth.
Please.
So if you want to sit here, I can sit here, I don't care. I don't care about this bullshit.
A touchdown, observe tracking mass moment closely and call out cyclic center. All attitude information is based on the attitude indicator unless otherwise mentioned. Avoid OEI training if gross mass is above OEI training weight, of course.
So in bracket, this means if you want to do OEI training, open the Flight Manual Supplement 913, which is OEI training, with specific limitation charts and performance charts.
145, no problem. If a vertical climb with a heavy aircraft helicopter is performed, you may infringe
You enter the high velocity
area, thank you. Prior commencing training, including vertical profiles.
So So what does it mean? It means if you are doing some vertical takeoff and Cat A training, you have to make sure that you are doing first the clear heliport until you reach the weight allowing you to do the vertical takeoff. Because if you compute the maximum takeoff weight with the chart Cat A, technically you are inside the, even if you are inside the high velocity diagram, because of your weight, you are not concerned by this high velocity diagram.
So flight manual section 5, the height velocity diagram avoidance technique at B is based on selecting a nose down attitude of approx minus 15 to minus 25. In case of a real OEI during vertical climb and execution of a Cat A VTOL maneuver, flyaway or landing is a safer option for training with vertical profile, assure weight below main mass, maximum gross mass, VTOL and obstacle clear, flyaway or landing area. Okay?
Of course, you will start first doing helipad landing on the threshold of the runway. So if something goes wrong, then you can reject like a short field or a clear heliport. You don't start right away within an environment which is quite risky in terms of real engine failure.
Alors, si je fais ça maintenant, if I do like this,
Full ski, no. Yes.
you can read or not?
Yeah.
Dan, you can read?
T'as pas un contrôle plus là qui permet de contrôle.
Non mais là t'es en full, donc tu vas pas pouvoir
Pas mieux là?
Ouais. Ça, ah bah oui, ça reste dans le... C'est parfait. Si je fais ça, ouais, c'est ça le problème.
Toi, tu es obligé de cliquer 2 fois pour changer de
Ouais, ouais, en fait c'est bon. So you remember cockpit check, pre-takeoff check, master list check indication, fuel, N2 and arrow, INR on the 135. Takeoff check, master list, blue line, 0.5 below blue line, you know the song now. N2 and NRO, sorry. Pre-landing check, master list, landing, light if required. We can add for the landing what we have to do to check before landing. Yes? If we are performing a Cat A landing, what we have to check before landing? Decision height, sorry. So you have to adjust, to set if you are performing VTOL 1, VTOL 2, VTOL 3 or clear report. Okay?
So as I told you, you always check 3 things. First, the technical status of the aircraft, warning, caution, PNPs, okay? Then the performance status, okay, so Cat A, so do I need a Heiner and something like this? What kind of takeoff I'm going to do? And even maybe I turn the air condition off for takeoff because I need all the power for takeoff. I'll bring it back later. And the third point is what the configuration is. I'm taking off from an area which is with dust, so I put the sun filter. I need to have the floats because I'm taking off above the water. So we always have these 3 aspects of the aircraft to be checked: technical, performance, and equipment. So operational equipment, do I need? So do I take off with the HTOS or with the weather radar because I have some clouds? Also, like in IFR, during takeoff it will be HTOS, afterwards it will be weather radar. So this kind of aspect has to be covered each time you take off and you land. Okay, technical, performance, and equipment.
So you remember TDP for the 135 on clear heliport, 20 feet 30 knots. Landing 80 feet 40 knots. The VTOS 40 knots and the VR and the VY 65.
So here as well, sorry to interrupt, here as well you have to define a squadron policy or a squadron decision or a squadron standard. Because there is nothing written on the flight manual regarding the setting of the VH. During takeoff, I've been flying with people putting 20 feet, Okay, it's their decision. I cannot say yes or no. It's not on the flight manual, nothing written, so you can choose. Personally, I would not put 20 feet because you are looking outside. So, okay. When I've been flying on the oil and gas, we were putting 200 feet. 200 feet is the first step during OEI takeoff and blah 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 on category A clear heliport. But it's quite stupid as well because 200 feet is only giving you 35 feet clearance above obstacle. It doesn't give you anything else. So why 200? Why not 35? So what we are usually putting is the decision for the landing. So if we take off and we have a problem, we come back and we have directly the landing decision. But you could put 1,000, you could put 200, you could put whatever you want. That's just your job to define, okay, on this training academy, we ask the trainee to set this value during takeoff and everybody stick to it, okay?
LDP and TDP for TAP rating flight training as shown above reflect the value for Cat A clear report operation are not relevant. Alors, attends, où est-ce qu'on est là? Ah, voilà. For any other flight operation, since neither the distance to the obstacle nor their heads are known, during normal operations the pilot is to define the decision point himself based on ambient conditions, temperature, pressure, gross mass, and his judgment of the helicopter performance.
The origin of this sentence is EASA asked us to start introducing a little bit of Cat A philosophy with a decision point, which doesn't exist in Cat B. Cat B, you take off and depending when you have the failure, you decide to reject
Inshallah.
or to continue, depending of the surrounding the landscape. If you take off above the water, you will find a bit more to fly and something. So since the EASA noticed that many twin engine helicopter pilots were not really aware of this decision point and something because there are most of them flying category B, EASA asked us in Germany to start putting some Cat A philosophy. But the problem is Cat A is not a decision. It would be too easy. Cat A is as well, you have to check that your rate of climb allow you to overfly the point with 35 feet. Your rejected distance is long enough to reject if you have the failure early. So you have many things to compute before you fly Cat A. And we were not flying, we are not training Cat A. Cat A is a specific